So please take a look.
Бучі. Донедавна перспективне сучасне місто, в якому мешкало 50 тисяч людей, які жили звичайним, щасливим, буденним життям. Наразі їх тут залишилося 3,5 тисячі. І все змінилося, все обірвалося 27 лютого. Зранку сюди війшли російські війська, війшла важка техніка, ракета влучила в житловий будинок, і з'явилися перші людські жертви. 33 дні окупації, і весь світ зригнувся від усього того, що ми побачили. Того, що страшно побачить всередині Європи у 21 столітті і що неможливо повірити. Вражають масштаби руйнації. Руйнації людської особистості людей, які прийшли і чинили ті звірства, які ми сьогодні бачили на власні очі. Катівня у приміщенні, у підвалі дитячого санаторію, братерська могила. Туди просто скидували людей з зав'язаними руками. Багато нових тіл знаходять у приватних садибах, у парках, тому що їх просто прикривали землею, щоб зберегти від того, щоб їх не розтягнули собаки. Це жахливо бачити сьогодні.
Для тих, хто щось ще не може називати своїми іменами, хто на кого напав, де чорне, де біле, ми, українці, стоїмо на своїй землі. Ми говоримо, що і в помині не було такого, що нас треба від когось визволяти. Просто російські ізверги, вони просто вриваються на нашу землю і вбивають наших людей. І ми зараз можемо бачити, як наші люди лежать в братських могилах. Зараз їх вже намагаються діставати звідти, ідентифікувати, хто є хто. Ми сподіваємось і хочемо, щоб всі чули правду, де чітко називають не просто, що там ми проти війни чи ще щось, де чітко говорять, що Росія, вона просто вторглася на нашу землю і вбиває наших людей.
Техніки дуже багато було. Вони жили в домах, де виламали просто все, як там поселились. У нас знайомих, він був в теробороні, його вивели, він був весь побитий. Його знайомого побили, печінку відбили, його потім бабушка якась доглядала. Знайомого, то ми досі не знаємо, де він і що він. У нас вдома є підвал, рядом садик з бомбосховищем. Багато там людей сиділо, дітей дуже багато. І наша сім'я теж, ми кажемо, що це наш будинок, ми самі все зробили. У нас тварини є, ми не поїдемо нікуди. Було все одно. Я переживала тільки за своїх рідних.
Спочатку ми розвозили по вулицям Бучі їжу, одяг. Зараз ми заїхали в дитячий садок, розгрузили наш бус, ще один бус розгрузили. Зараз ще поїдемо, розгрузимо в іншому місці гуманітарну допомогу, де люди вже зможуть приходити і отримувати необхідні для них речі. А ми продовжуємо робити те, що ми можемо. Благослови Господь Україну і благослови Господь кожного з вас.
Сьогодні ми у Бучі.
Thank you guys so much for taking time to watch this. For us, Ukrainians, it's personal. For me, it's personal because it's my family who's there. But it's been 59 days of war, I believe now, and in this like a lot of tragedy and a lot of things that nobody wished for anybody to happen, in death and disappointment, we see also so much hope and help and support and love from people who care. Even like you guys, you never met, maybe you don't even have any relatives or connection in Ukraine, but you stepped in and you wanted to help. So we just wanted to share a few slides with you to show you what we were able to do, and if you would like, how you can help us. And I know you already helped us so much. I see this room full of supplies. It's amazing. But I was talking to my family and our other volunteers who are in Ukraine. I'll give you a little bit of a background story. My brother and I started a coffee roasting company when I lived in Ukraine, and it's called Sibs Coffee. It's short for siblings. So when the war started, our coffee shop that used to serve coffee turned into a hub or community center where locals would bring supplies to help territorial defense or soldiers. And then our kitchen turned from making pastries to making soups and feeding people in our community. And then on the 23rd day of war, we were able to reopen for a few hours each day, and we're serving coffee again. The building where our coffee shop is located has a basement that serves as a bomb shelter. So when people hear air raid sirens, we shut everything down and then they go in the bomb shelter. But one thing that I heard so many times is about the support, and obviously it's meeting the needs like sending food, clothes, medical supplies, but most importantly, they feel support and they don't feel alone in this struggle. So this is what this presentation is about. So a lot of people throughout in the whole world is showing their support to Ukraine, and you guys, one of them. It's been 59 days of war, and on the picture to the right, you can see my brother in the van that was supposed to evacuate children, but it was shot at. So there's a lot of death and a lot of loss that's happening right now, and I have some numbers that we prepared for you. So 13.5 million Ukrainians, women, children had to flee their cities to find safety. And I believe there are up to 5 million Ukrainians that were able to go to some European countries or even here, but a lot of them are still in Ukraine, and they lost their homes, they lost their belongings, and now they are misplaced or internal refugees. A lot of people, especially the cities that happen to be under occupation, because they're being heavily bombed, they don't have access to clean water and electricity anymore. And one of the things that we were able to do from over here is we have Amazon link that we will share with you, but we were buying water purifiers and we're able to send it to Ukraine. And in one case, it's Kherson, one of the cities that is still occupied. It's in the south of Ukraine. It took them 3 or 4 attempts, but they were successfully delivered to them. So that's incredible. Here on this picture, you can see how people are making, they're called camouflage nets. And from a small town called Vody, in the church that I used to go to, I grew up in, they were able to organize, it's mostly women, sometimes they have like up to 300 women every day come and they make masking nets and then they send them to the front line. And it's one of the things, like we help from over here, but people, Ukrainians also do what they can to also help in, provide for our soldiers and defenders. So when the war started, like I mentioned, we were able to, we created Amazon list and a lot of people responded. At first it was just our family and friends, and then that link, people just shared with their friends, and then a lot of the times we receive Amazon packages and we don't even know those people or they're out of state. But you can see that all the pictures with boxes as of today, we were able to send over 15,000 pounds of supplies. And it's medical supplies, it's baby formulas, baby food, clothes. And I wanted to share one of the stories with you. So my hometown has almost 4,000 refugees right now from eastern cities like Kharkiv, Donetsk, Lugansk, and it's mostly women and children. And some of them come, they're pregnant, and they're gonna give birth in my hometown. Hopefully they don't have to move from there, and they don't have access to diapers or baby formulas. And just to see the pictures of women, like things that we take for granted that are normal, it's life-saving for somebody there. So it's always incredible to see boxes being packed here 1 week, and then in 2 weeks being delivered to Ukraine and distributed to some people that really need those supplies. So Nick will share about his trip to Ukraine when he took 46 suitcases with him.
You want me to do that now, or do you want to?
Yeah.
Okay, super. All right, so 你好，我 Nick. That's all I have for now.
You will come back.
I'll come back, yeah, eventually. Yeah, I figured it might be helpful if I could show you maybe on the map, because it's one thing to hear Ukraine, but then it's another thing to maybe see how far and what these things are that are making it there. So I'll give you some narration while I'm doing this. So I used to, so I guess my connection is, I lived in Shenzhen, China for a year, and I worked at a school there, and it was an international school. And the same company that I worked for there had schools all over the world. So they offered me a job in Kiev, Ukraine. And so I worked in Kiev, Ukraine from 2010 until almost 2015. So that's where I met Dima, and that's where I ended up meeting my wife. And it was a very cool experience, to say the least. So yeah, there's Ukraine right there. And then when we say these supplies that are happening, so if you look here, to give you a reference, Ukraine is roughly the size of Texas, maybe a little bit bigger. And they have, before the war, there was about 44 million people there. And so her family and Dima come from this region here, right? And so if you've been seeing on the map, and you've been noticing the areas that are being occupied and where the fighting is happening. So when you hear about Western aid going to Ukraine, unfortunately, most of it stays right here, because all of the internally displaced refugees are going from here and then ending up on the border with Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, any of these countries here, right? And there is a need for it there. But where her family and where Dima is from it's a very strategic point right now. They're trying to get to Dnipro here to cut off this part of Ukraine and claim it. And so where her family is, it's one of the last outposts where they can get supplies there and then redistribute it to other parts of Ukraine. And so when her brother goes on these trips to get the supplies, he's driving. If there wasn't traffic and if there wasn't roadblocks, if the roads were clear, it would take him 16 hours to get from here to Lviv, where the supplies come to. So they have to drive 16 hours one way. If there wasn't traffic, it takes him about 2 days right now for one direction. So it's very, very challenging. Yeah. So when the war first started, we were kind of in a similar position where we were thinking, how can we help? What can we do? And we happen to have flyer miles, and I was out on sick leave from work, so I said, let's take some suitcases over there, see what we can do. And then we spoke at our church on Sunday, and some volunteers from church said, hey, we want to go with you. So it ended up being just me going by myself to having 3 other people go with me, and we took 46 suitcases. And then because I worked at that school in Kiev, those schools, the international schools, that one in particular, had a lot of diplomats whose children went there and CEOs of corporations. And so I was able to use some of those connections, and we flew into Berlin, drove from Berlin, and it was very interesting because Syrian refugees who, Russia also bombed and attacked them as well, they helped pack supplies into the vans as well. So we brought the suitcases from the US, filled up more supplies, and drove them in. It was very interesting because I thought it was kind of a mini miracle, because how many of you have been traveling and your luggage gets lost on the way to your destination somewhere? Every single piece of baggage we checked, so 46 of them, all made it there. No worries, no issues, and I was very, very, very pleased. I was a little stressed out at first, but we made it. And then, can you imagine, like, when you're in the airport, just having like 2 or 3 big suitcases? That's tough to get through the airport. We had to get like 4 really big carts, and we had to talk with people in the finagle, and finally they gave it to us. So after we did that, yeah, we drove, and so we woke up on Tuesday morning and went to sleep. We went to sleep at Thursday morning at 2 a.m. So we're up for quite a bit of time transporting all the stuff, and we were able to meet up with some other friends that I worked with in Ukraine, near Krakow over here, and then from there we drove down to the Uzhgorod crossing here, and that was very interesting because it was still early March when that happened. So at nighttime it's still freezing, and it had snowed a few days before. So there were, I would say, I can't say for sure, but when I got to the border there, it was about 11 o'clock at night, and we were delayed because of some logistical things. When I got close to the border, you've heard about them kind of doing cyber attacks. I don't know if it really was, but my phone magically stopped working 30 minutes from the Ukrainian border, and so I had to use someone else's phone because my phone was the only one that had the times, the supplies, and the dates that we would be taking the things into Ukraine. So I was able to use someone else's phone, and we ended up making it. But thankfully that happened because her brother, when he was picking them up, he had to drive through this town here, Chernihiv, and he missed a missile strike by 2 hours because of the delay. So it was very, very fortunate. But in addition to that, yeah, so we got the supplies over, and what was interesting is that as far as I could see for miles, there were charter buses full of people who were trying to escape. And it took me, we explained to the Border Patrol what I was doing, and so they allowed me to just take the van in. We offloaded the supplies, and when I was coming back in, I didn't have to wait in the line with everyone. They just let me cross back in. It still took me 10 hours to get from one border fence to another border fence. And those people have been waiting for days, probably, just waiting to cross. And it was, at that time, like I said, it was nighttime in early March, and it was like 19 degrees Fahrenheit at night there. So it was very cold. And just, I can't imagine like just being patient enough to wait for that long for your chance to get to safety. And on the Slovakian side of the border, they had basically a triage center like the size of like a football field with medical supplies, with food, with hot tea, clothing, and an area for them to get sorted again. It was very interesting. And some people got tired of waiting, and I saw them. They were just walking across the border, and they had like you have the emergency blankets, the thermal reflective ones. They had some of those on as well. So it was very interesting to see that. So one thing that's very cool that we've been able to do, because her brother and her relatives are willing to drive that distance, the supplies that we get to Ukraine, they get to the people who need them in the areas that are affected right now. So that's very crucial and critical for what's happening. Is there anything else you want me to share, sweetheart? No? I guess one thing that was unique when I was there also is that I got a chance to see Ukraine. When I first moved there in 2010, they had one president, Yanukovych, and he was the president that they ended up having he fled the country because he was very corrupt. And then I was able to see them kind of transition from a country that I could drive down the road, and if I was speeding, which of course I never sped, you could get out of a ticket by giving someone a few dollars, and no problem. Now that's not possible anymore. They've really made strides to become less corrupt, and it's really it's kind of heartbreaking, but also encouraging to see that if a country is willing to make these moves towards democratic values and fighting for freedom and justice, that there's still people that want to oppress that. Just like in your case, in the Taiwanese community, where you have those democratic values and you have those principles, and mainland China doesn't want you to have those things, which is it's a shame. And I really am very thankful that you guys have kind of seen that parallel and you're willing to partner with us on this, because that's a really, really big concern it's been an ongoing concern for the Taiwanese community, but also even more so now. So with that, I'll kind of let my friend Dima explain what the medical supplies are and what the needs of the soldiers are and kind of how things have been going.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Since the map is there,
Yes.
the country Moldova,
Yeah, right here.
are they friendly to Russia? Are they not?
One area. Yeah, right here on the border. So you'll hear about historically. Oh, sorry, I'll get out of the way. So you hear about when Russia will liberate Russian-speaking people, right? So since 2006, they've been doing this in other places. In this area here, there's an area called Transnistria, which is a little tiny, like the size of a county here in the United States. And they left some Russian military supplies, and there's a small community there that thinks they are their own independent country, but it's like a little mini like Russian exclave, basically, right here. And so, yeah, if heaven forbid they make their, are able to meet these objectives, there's basically a mini Russian force that's right there. Maybe you heard about it in 2006, they invaded part of Georgia, the country, and actually that's right here in this little corner here. So there's this region here and this region here, and they have a program where they, if there's a territory that's bordering Russia, they will offer free Russian citizenship to those people, and some people take it, some people don't, and then they use that as an excuse to go in and liberate the Russian citizens who are there, but they're not really, So yeah, here, that little area, Transnistria, is there, and if we zoomed in, you could see it's like just right here, but Moldova itself is, I would say, more trying to become part of the European Union, the whole country, yeah. Dima?
Hi everyone again, my name is Dima once again. So I've been involved in working with military and paramilitary units since 2014. As a civilian, I don't know how much you know about the very beginning of this war, but when it happened in 2014, Ukrainian military was not prepared for anything like that. Ukraine, as its own country, is a very young country, and it has never had a military conflict as its own country, only as a part of USSR, which is, once again, all of those wars were initiated by pro-Russian governments. So when this started, Ukraine quickly learned that the military is very severely underfunded, under-equipped, and under-experienced. And there were massive casualties when it started. And what started happening, because of the years of corruption in post-USSR Ukraine in the early 90s, all the warehouses that were supposed to be sealed and packed with weapons and tactical gear and medical gear for soldiers, they weren't there anymore, because all of that was sold out to African countries, Afghanistan, and Middle East by corrupt officers. So now in 2014, 2015, we have the situation where there are a lot of military casualties on the eastern part of Ukraine where the war originally started, right here. Because Ukrainian military mostly consists of 18-year-old boys that were called into the military, mandatory. They didn't want to be there, they didn't get good training. So civilians in Ukraine started putting together these care packages and talking to military here and buying stuff that was decommissioned here, but it was still good. Like uniform, boots, medical gear, tourniquets, stop the bleed supplies, and all that stuff was started getting shipped into Ukraine and delivered to the east. So first few years of war, all that stuff was delivered up to 99% by civilians. Fast forward to now, so my friends and I were involved in that. I have a lot of friends that are in the military currently. They never left the eastern part. Now that I live here, I wasn't involved that much in the past couple of years because up to very recent events, it got a little bit more quiet there. But when it started on February 24th, one of my friends, one of my closest friends, I consider him a brother, he is in a special military unit that deals with tactical combat casualty care. So he goes into the very, very hot zones with combat surgeons and medics to evacuate civilians or wounded soldiers. He reached out to me and said, hey man, we don't have anything. We do not have body armor. We don't have the tools, the means to go there and be safe. And the following day, I got a text from him, which I think is one of the worst things that you can get from somebody that you care about. The text just said, hey man, forgive me for everything. I think this is my last text because they're hitting us really hard. And, excuse me. And so, me being here, I didn't know what to do. I guess I was in the same boat as Yulia Nick. And I just started talking to people at work. I work for Bellevue Fire Department. And I just started reaching out to people saying, hey, this is what's going on. People were asking me what can be done. And I had no idea because I'm here and it's just me. I'm not a part of any organization. I just have people that I love and care for there. And all of a sudden, I talked to one person, I talked to another person, and I had these people saying, hey, we have body armor. We just don't have a way to deliver it there, but we can donate 14 plates or 5 or 2 or whatever. And I talked to Nick, and it was just incredible. When I reached out to Nick, he said, yeah, I'm flying to Ukraine and I can take body armor. And that's all those guys needed at that very, very moment. And so once Nick got there, I got another text from my friend who said, this is the first time in 10 days that I'm crying about a good thing and not seeing somebody dying. Because we just got tourniquets, stop the bleed supplies, and body armor. So now we can be somewhat safe. They're still severely under-equipped. For instance, one plate carrier bulletproof vest has 2 plates, one in front and one in the back. What those guys do, because they don't have enough of that, they take one out of the back pocket and put it in front. And they're joking around with them, just don't turn your back on them, don't get shot in the back. But that way they can have, 3 vests now are helping 6 people instead of 3. So I kind of kept that up at work and was just reaching out around in Redmond Fire Department. I had some friends that worked there. And what ended up happening, I initially just reached out with, that was Nick's idea, and asked them, hey, do you guys have any expired supplies, so like Band-Aids, bandages, because that stuff doesn't go bad. But if you need to get rid of it, I'll take it. Once again, they can use everything. And I didn't really have a lot of hope for that. 2 days later, my battalion chief reached out to me and said that the company that supplies King County Fire Departments with medical gear has 4 pallets, so it's about 2,200 pounds of medical supplies in Sacramento that they want to donate. They just didn't know who to talk to. So we got connected with them. Long story short, all of that stuff is now up in Stanwood where Yulia and Nick and their family are sorting and shipping stuff out. And there's a lot of supplies, not just for combat medics, also for hospitals, very sophisticated surgical gear that we wouldn't be able to buy or get if it wasn't for just talking to people, reaching out. And so that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm trying to source out the biggest need right now, and I think it's going to be that need for a long time as bleeding protocols, stop the bleed, like tourniquets, pressure bandages. Those things are not cheap, and right now a lot of the vendors here in America they don't have that stuff anymore because everybody started buying stuff and shipping it over. But that's the biggest need now because number one reason for soldiers and civilians dying in the field is they bleed out. It's not, some sicknesses or diseases. It's just people bleed out. Knowing from work, people bleed out really, really quiet. They just go to sleep and never wake up. And a lot of that is happening because they didn't have a chance to put a tourniquet on the, shot through arm or leg or stuff like that. So that's what I've been doing. In addition to that, when my friend and his unit reach out to me, they ask for very specific things, things like ballistic vests, ballistic helmets, flashlights, night vision goggles, and I've been doing that kind of with the help of my coworkers and people that I talk to. We just put some money together. Every overtime shift that I pick up goes towards that, either shipping or buying that stuff. And I work together with Yulia Nick, and go to their facility where they sort stuff, and then we get it shipped out. Biggest need is stop the bleed supplies, tourniquets, super simple tools, but not cheap, and people always need them. They ended up, what I know now is a lot of military units recycle tourniquets, which should be a one-time use, but they disinfect them, wash them just because they don't have enough. And with constant shelling and bombing, it's just hell. It's not just people shooting at buildings. Like once building gets decimated by a bomb, there's everybody who's in the radius of at least 500 yards is bleeding. And so all those supplies are always a huge need. Anything else? Yeah, that's pretty much the very, very gist of it. Very basic, just so you have an idea. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. And I have a few more pictures. So I'm gonna try to connect my phone and show you some pictures from my brother who's on the ground there, and then Dima got involved and helped us with medical supplies, and we also are trying to help internal refugees, like I mentioned before, misplaced people. It's mostly women with children who are staying within the country but lost everything. They lost their homes. They come, get from the bus just whatever they have on them, that's all they have. So on the first picture, my mom and our barista, she's a volunteer right now. They went to visit families and distribute supplies to them. So their goal is to help first the category of people who really needs it the most, mom with children, and then elderly people, and then people with disabilities. And there you can see a pregnant woman who's about to give birth. So they provided her with baby bottles, baby formula, diapers, clothes. And then this is also our friend who's she's in territorial defense. So it's volunteers who have like medical background and are able to help. And then we send them first aid kits. They were so thankful for that. And then this is one of my favorite pictures because a lot of the kids in Ukraine, they never tried like baby food in pouches, and they haven't had anything sweet. I know it's not like a critical emergency supply, but those kids, they didn't have anything sweet for like over 2 months or almost 2 months. So when they bring the humanitarian aid, kids come up to them and the first thing they ask is, do you have something sweet for us? So it was incredible to see their reaction and trying to figure out how to eat food from the pouches. And then this is my brother delivering supplies to the hot zones. And I'll share just a few stories. It's hard for me sometimes to talk about it because we hear like on the phone with them, I hear air raid sirens or explosions, and it's just me being here safe and only hearing it over the phone, so sometimes I cannot even imagine what it's like for them. And I'm very thankful that him, the pastor from our local church, and other volunteers are willing to drive all the way to the east to deliver those supplies, because when soldiers get those medical kits and food, they're able to help civilians. So people who are under occupation, they don't have access sometimes for essentials, for food, for water. And the other day, they just came back from one of the places in the east, and a lot of the times they have to take down the signs on the streets, or when you enter the city, you see the sign that says like, okay, this is Seattle. So for Russians to get lost easier, they take down all the signs, and sometimes GPS and internet doesn't work too, so they happen to be on the territory, on the occupied territory, and they had to drive at night through the fields with no lights So a lot of stories like that, but thankfully God is keeping them safe and they're able to get to places where the help is needed the most. And I think this is our goal, not just send aid to Ukraine, but send it from like your hands to hands of people that we trust there and that we know that those supplies will get to mamas with kids or soldiers or elderly people. And we have a few more pictures. A lot of the times in places that are now free but have been occupied, like they don't have water. So this is a setup, like it could be an apartment building and they get together and they make food for like all the people that are still there on like stoves like this. And this is my dad packing more sleeping bags that we sent and sleeping pads to soldiers. And there's going to be a picture of, if we can get to my Facebook, there's going to be a picture of refugee centers and people, they're just happy to be safe, but they sleep on the floor sometimes. So we were super thankful that we were able to send a bunch of sleeping bags and pads, so now they can be sleeping on something comfortable. This is the picture of a line of people just to get food. And again, even if the place is free, they don't have food at the stores. It's like one of the scariest things you are safe, praise God, but also you go to the store and there's nothing. The shelves are empty. And I got quite a few pictures like that. So it's incredible to see that we shop for food here because we have it. There's an abundance of it. And then people there, they can get, and we try to send protein, like protein bars and then food in pouches. This is them distributing in this canister. It's like a candle that they can boil water on. I think I showed you this picture. And this is our space where all the boxes that are ready to be shipped. We also accept clothes, women's, men's, all sizes for children, new or gently used, and we send it to Ukrainian families. And then those pallets that Dima mentioned, those are medical supplies, and we're so thankful and happy that we have them. Now we're just hoping to be able to get them there as fast as possible, and just knowing from it's not just somebody, it's people that we know, some of them personally, and then this is going to go to my region, in Dima's region where we're from, Dnipropetrovsk, and then where Ksusha from, it's Kharkiv, that's where my brother drives to and delivers supplies to, but from her city is being occupied right now and is under attack, so all the wounded children, all the wounded soldiers get to the hospital where my family is from, and we're hoping to get the supplies to them there. And again, thank you for joining us in helping. It's incredible to see your children here, like seeing that when governments or politics cannot help, people want to help. And it's one of the most incredible things in this whole tragedy that we were able to witness. People want to help people, and it's all possible because of you guys, your generosity and your kind hearts. So on behalf of us and a lot of Ukrainians in Ukraine who will receive those supplies, we just want to say thank you. Yeah, if you guys have any questions, we'll be happy to answer. And then, we're still going to be here for a few minutes. But yeah.
Do you know how many refugees come to USA already?
So this number is changing because a lot of them came through Mexican border, and now United States approved a program. I think it's called United for Ukraine. So now they'll be able to get visas and be able to stay here for 1 year and actually get work permits too. So as long as they have a sponsor here, because work permits can take a while to get to, but instead of just getting to the border and not knowing if you'll be able to make it through or not, they can do it, from like Poland or whatever country they're in right now. I don't have a number, but I can check it out for you. Yeah. there's going to be a need for, I believe, new Ukrainian refugees, but I think our goal, if they're already here, we know that they're safe and they're so far away. So we're going to try to focus on continuing our effort and helping families who are staying in Ukraine. Yeah.
请问还有谁有问题吗？欢迎提问。Questions, anyone?
How much does it cost to ship like a box? Just a
我等一下你要的时候，我麦克风。
So if you could see, the boxes are pretty huge, and it costs us $3.60 per pound if we want to ship it by air. And when we get donations, we sort them and we see what's a priority, and our list constantly gets updated based on the needs that we learn from Ukrainians. So if it's like medical or food or baby supplies, we try to ship it by air, and we make boxes up to 80 pounds, so it's like almost $280, depends on per box. Yeah, but that way it gets there in 7 to 10 days. And that map that Nick showed you, my brother makes the drive, picks everything out, loads it in his van, and then we try to have 2. And then on their way back, they go to different cities and hospitals, refugee centers deliver it. But most of it gets to my hometown, and from there, it gets to hot zones, to eastern Ukraine, pretty much places that nobody wants to go to. And our government is trying to initiate green corridors, so like a safety time and place to evacuate people and deliver supplies. But a lot of the times, it's being violated, so it's up to volunteers and people who are willing to risk their lives to take the supplies to those places.
Any questions, anyone? 请问大家有问题要问他们吗？或者是想要分享，就是你的一些想法或感受的？
How long will the program continue? Is it as long as the war lasts, which hopefully will end soon?
Yeah. So it started with our own effort, and like I said, for us it's personal, it's our families, but also I'm a huge patriot of my country. I love Ukraine. He stole me. But I'm planning on going back in the middle of May to deliver some more supplies. And then we're hoping to be able to go and stay there for, I don't know how long we need to stay to help rebuild our country. Right now, we are working on becoming a part of a nonprofit. We're hoping that it will open up new doors for us to be able to raise money, because right now it's like Dima raised some money for medical supplies, I personally raised some money, Kseniya raised, but it's not sustainable in the long run. So we're committing for this year and next year, because like my husband said, even if the war is over today, there's such a huge humanitarian crisis, and the numbers are so devastating. Like people that they worked for so hard lost everything, so they have to rebuild and start their lives from scratch, and we just want to be a part of helping them. Yeah.
So yeah, we have a 3-year goal basically. We're committed for the next 3 years to keep sustained deliveries going. So as long as there are people who are willing to donate supplies or goods or financially, we'll keep on getting things there.
Yeah. And we're also, he has a full-time job, I'm working, we're also helping in this effort, and we're just thankful for people like you to join us and share this load. Yeah. Anyone wants to go to Ukraine to help us rebuild after the war is over? Okay, take pictures somewhere. We'll get in touch with you. Oh yeah, the poster. So my friend, she started a GoFundMe. At this point, we paid over closer to $30,000 for shipping, and then the supplies that he took. So my friend started a GoFundMe to help us raise money, and we have $9,000 raised. But we also have over 20,000 pounds of medical supplies in our warehouse, and we just hate for it to be sitting there. I know we will continue to do what we can personally, but if you want to share the word, share with your friends, because we know that our circle of people is limited, but yours is bigger, and then it gets bigger hopefully, and then we'll be able to do more with your help.
We would like to take a group picture just right in front of the door. So and then with the supplies to really show the Taiwanese communities and also